My name is Morgan Ellis. I am 36 years old. And for most of my adult life, I have moved through New York City half invisible, a hard-working manager. Someone who built a respected name behind the scenes but rarely got credit in front of the crowd. The truth is, that never bothered me. Some of us are not meant to be center stage. We are the ones who make sure the stage is built right and the lights come on when they should. Until this year, I had lived quietly, running the family's luxury wedding venue on the Upper East Side, never truly believing I would be anything more than a caretaker of someone else's dream. My late uncle always said I was the only one in the family who could make the business survive. But his words were mostly whispered, lost beneath the voices of those who loved attention and took credit for what they did not build. Little did I know that on the eve of the most important wedding of the year, the life I thought I understood was about to shatter. If you have ever found yourself trusting the wrong people, especially your own kin, then you will want to hear how a single night can change everything. My cousin Ryan had always been the golden child. 5 years younger than me. Quick with a smile and quicker with a lie. He moved through life as if rules were suggestions. He grew up in Connecticut prep schools and came home with stories about startups and connections, never keeping a real job more than a year. Yet, every family gathering, my mother and aunt gushed about Ryan's potential while quietly asking me to help cover next month's payroll. When Ryan was 16, the family paid for his rehab twice. When I wanted to go to business school, they said it was too expensive. When Ryan crashed a new car into the neighbor's yard, he got a replacement. I once spent 3 months negotiating a $500,000 contract for the venue and never got a thank you. Instead, my uncle handed Ryan a company credit card and told me to show him the ropes. Sometimes I think families invent their own gravity, pulling you toward old hurts you cannot escape. Even in my 30s, I was expected to clean up after the family's chosen prince. It started early. When I was 10, the venue's grand opening was supposed to be my birthday party. At the last minute, the cake was changed to celebrate Ryan's first big soccer win. I spent the afternoon stacking folding chairs with the staff while he posed for photos with our relatives. At 18, my high school graduation was overshadowed by Ryan's acceptance to a college he would soon flunk out of. The family left my dinner early, saying, "You understand Ryan needs us tonight." In my 20s, I worked weekends and holidays while Ryan traveled to Europe. Once, I caught him stealing from the office safe. When I told my uncle, he said, "Don't be petty. Ryan just needs a little guidance." The money was never returned. The pattern only hardened with time. When our venue nearly went under during a pandemic, I mortgaged my own apartment to cover expenses, something no one in the family ever knew. Months later, Ryan took credit for saving the business in front of our biggest client. All I got was a quick glance from my mother and a familiar phrase, "You know how important family is, Morgan." I kept giving, even when the cost was mine alone. When my aunt was diagnosed with cancer, I paid $120,000 for her treatments, using an anonymous account so she would never feel indebted. When Ryan's startup collapsed and he faced bankruptcy, I bailed him out another $78,000, funneled quietly through a lawyer friend. Even when the family business missed payroll last Christmas, I covered the shortfall, telling the staff it was a seasonal bonus from our mysterious investor. Sometimes, kindness is a currency that goes unrecognized. My family never suspected I was the one keeping things afloat. They called me cold, said I was all business, never realizing that everything they had left was because I could not walk away. The night before the wedding, the air in the venue was thick with roses, candles, and expectation. My phone rang, security on the line. There was trouble in the ballroom. When I arrived, the place looked like a war zone. Flower arrangements trampled. The sound system ruined. Chairs overturned. Someone had sent out a blast email from my account to all the VIP guests, claiming the wedding was canceled and the bride's family was at fault. Security footage showed Ryan, face sharp in the glow of the exit sign, holding my office keys. I should have seen it coming. But some wounds never heal until they're cut open for everyone to see. If you have ever wondered what it feels like to lose everything because of the people who claim to love you, keep listening. This was only the beginning. There's a certain chill that only comes with sitting at a table full of relatives you've known your whole life, each face familiar, each smile slightly forced. 2 weeks before the wedding debacle, our family gathered for Sunday dinner at my mother's apartment overlooking Central Park. Crystal glasses, linen napkins, roast beef with too much horseradish, and the constant hum of old grievances beneath polite conversation. Ryan arrived late, as always, with a bouquet of wilted lilies for my aunt and a boast about his latest tech project. My mother welcomed him as if he were royalty. I poured myself a second glass of wine and tried to fade into the wallpaper. The topic turned, as it often did, to the family business. Ryan leaned forward, his tone all innocence. "Morgan, you know I've been thinking. The venue needs fresh ideas. Maybe someone with my vision should have more say. We're family, after all." My uncle, half listening, nodded along. "That's not a bad thought. Maybe it's time to reconsider the ownership split. Morgan's done well, but she could use help." My mother's eyes met mine, part challenge, part warning. For years, they'd let me run the place, but never truly trusted me with it. Ryan smiled, showing too many teeth. "You've held the keys long enough, cousin. Maybe it's time to share the crown." It was not the first time he'd floated this idea, but tonight his words hung heavier, sharpened by the coming wedding and the promise of a lucrative new contract. The table grew tense, even the clinking of silverware paused. There are wounds you learn to live with, and wounds that never quite scab over. In the days following that dinner, Ryan sent a string of emails and group texts to family members, pushing the idea that the business needed a modern touch. He attached articles about struggling venues and warned about old-fashioned thinking sinking the ship. My aunt replied, "Morgan's always been dependable, but maybe Ryan deserves a real chance." My uncle chimed in, "We need to keep up with the times. Morgan, don't take it personally." I scrolled through messages. The pattern, as clear as it was, painful years of being steady, counted for less than a single suggestion from Ryan. Even my mother, in private, pressed me. "He's family. It's his birthright too. Don't be stubborn." I remembered every time Ryan had let the business down. Every late payment. Every forgotten responsibility. Every time I'd fixed his mistakes in silence. But resentment is a poison that only hurts the one who drinks it. Amid the barrage of messages, one email arrived from our family's longtime attorney. It was a scanned addendum to my uncle's will, something I had never seen before. It spelled out a clause buried in legal language if the venue's reputation or finances were irreparably damaged before the end of the calendar year, control would revert to the next eligible family member, Ryan. Suddenly, all the pieces fit. The campaign to undermine me, the push for control, the sudden interest in the business from people who'd ignored it for years. I felt the floor tilt beneath me. My uncle, a man I'd trusted, had left a time bomb ticking under everything I'd built. That night, Ryan sent one final text to the family group chat after I questioned his motives. "You think owning this venue makes you special? You're just holding my place until I take what's mine." The words stung. But more than that, they made me realize how alone I truly was. If you've ever looked around a room full of people with your last name and wondered if any of them were truly on your side, then you'll understand the weight I carried to bed that night. What I didn't know then was that betrayal, when it finally arrives, rarely comes as a stranger. The morning after the venue was trashed, I barely had time to change clothes before my phone began buzzing. My inbox was flooded, clients demanding answers, reporters asking for comment, staff wondering if they should show up at all. Someone had posted a video from our security camera online. In it, the ballroom looked like a battlefield. You could see the flowers scattered, the speakers cracked open, the canceled email displayed on a screen. And, worst of all, the brief flash of Ryan's face as he left through the service entrance. The clip went viral faster than I could contain it. Within hours, our once sterling reputation was smeared across every social media platform in the city. Old clients messaged condolences. New clients called to cancel. One headline read, "Family feud destroys $1 million wedding." Venue, will the Ellis legacy survive? I felt stripped bare, as if someone had pulled the roof off my life and invited the world to point and gawk. It did not take long for the blame to find its target. Anonymous posts on wedding forums speculated that I had staged the scandal for attention or insurance money. A fake account, likely Ryan or one of his friends, posted, "Funny how everything falls apart right before a huge payout. Maybe management isn't as innocent as they look." My own family did little to defend me. In fact, my mother called that afternoon. "Morgan, people are saying awful things. Maybe you should just step back for a while. Let Ryan handle the press. At least until this blows over. We don't want the family name dragged any further through the mud." By noon, the board of directors had called an emergency meeting. They temporarily suspended my management rights, placing Ryan as interim operator. My stomach turned as he strutted through the lobby, greeting the staff with a smirk. "Guess I finally made it to the top. Cousin," he whispered as he passed me. "This is what happens when you forget who your real family is." It was the loneliest I'd ever felt, even standing in the middle of my own life's work. I wandered the empty halls that afternoon, touching the velvet curtains I had chosen myself, the engraved cutlery I had rescued from bankruptcy sales, the photographs of happy couples who had trusted me with their big day. All of it seemed to belong to someone else now. That night, I sat alone in the office, reviewing damage reports. Every email, every message, every call was a reminder of all I had lost. Even my most loyal employees began to doubt. "Morgan, did you really send that cancellation? Were you fighting with Ryan again? Are we going to get paid?" Then came the family group call. My mother, my uncle, my aunt, all with Ryan at the center. "Morgan, you need to let this go," my uncle said. "If you keep fighting, we'll have no choice but to bring lawyers in. This business needs unity." Ryan cut in, voice cold as ice. "You're lucky we let you stay in the picture at all. Why don't you take a break before you make things worse?" I said nothing, just stared at my reflection in the blank computer screen, feeling the sharp sting of humiliation. Public and private. Late that night, an email arrived from a wedding planner we'd worked with for years, a single attachment. No message. Inside was a screenshot of a group chat. Ryan, using my name, but had contacted vendors and partners. directing them to clear the venue and delay all deliveries until further notice. There was even a message to our tech supplier. Sound system is to be disconnected as soon as possible. This comes from the top Morgan's orders. The evidence was damning. But I hesitated. If I exposed Ryan now, would anyone believe me? Or would they just see more family drama? More fuel for the tabloids. The shame of being doubted by your own blood is not something you shake off easily. I spent that night pacing the empty halls. The email printout crumpled in my fist. The choice before me was stark: stay silent and lose everything, or go to war with my family in front of the world. I remembered my uncle's old saying, reputation is like glass once broken. Even if mended, the cracks will always show. But sometimes, the only way forward is through the wreckage. If you've ever been pushed to your lowest point, you know that's often where you find your true resolve. Tomorrow, I would decide what kind of legacy I wanted to leave behind. There's a certain kind of exhaustion that settles in when your world has come undone. It is not the tiredness of work, or even grief, but something colder, an emptiness where hope used to live. But I have always believed that when everything is stripped away, you either break or you build. I woke the next morning to gray, bruised light seeping through the curtains. Instead of collapsing, I began to move, quiet and methodical, as I always had. I started by calling my lawyer, Mrs. Patel, a sharp woman with a mind like a steel trap and a soft spot for underdogs. I forwarded her every message, every screenshot, every suspicious invoice I could find. She told me, gather everything: emails, call logs, bank statements. We need a timeline. And Morgan, don't tell anyone else what you're doing. Not yet. My best friend, Sarah, who had worked as our venue's florist for a decade, met me in the basement among the shattered vases and trampled lilies. You know I believe you, right? She whispered. Ryan's always been a snake. We just need proof. She brought coffee and a stack of storage keys. Together, we began sifting through months of event files, CCTV backups, and Ryan's digital footprints. It was painstaking, almost surgical. I traced the emails Ryan had sent in my name, the bank transfers to shell companies, the sudden uptick in cash withdrawals the week before the wedding. I found contracts he'd signed with a rival event planner, one who had always eyed our venue with envy. Each piece was a bruise pressed, a wound opened anew. But I kept going. I wrote down times, dates, signatures. I built a narrative, brick by painful brick. The breakthrough came late one night. Sarah and I were combing through security footage from the loading dock, a place most people forgot was even monitored. At 2:30 in the morning, just hours before the destruction, Ryan appeared on camera, letting in two men carrying cases. He handed them envelopes cash, from the look of it, and stood back as they sabotaged the sound equipment and scattered boxes of spoiled flowers throughout the ballroom. Even more damning in the office, Ryan was captured logging into the venue's accounts, sending the blast email to clients and staff. He wasn't alone. His girlfriend, Lena, a PR consultant with a reputation for creating crisis where none existed, watched and laughed, glass of champagne in hand. But it was not just the physical damage. A deeper thread ran through the evidence. Bank records revealed that Ryan had taken out a series of short-term loans, using the venue's future contracts as collateral. He had already initiated paperwork to transfer partial ownership to a holding company, one registered in Delaware, where his name appeared as managing partner. Sarah let out a low whistle. He was planning to sell the venue out from under you, maybe even tank the place for insurance, and buy it cheap after. My breath caught. In all my years of keeping the peace, cleaning up after family, I had never truly believed someone could look you in the eye and plan your downfall for a quick payday. I called Mrs. Patel. We have it all, I said. She told me to meet her at the venue first thing in the morning. And to bring everything. That next day, under the cold fluorescent lights of the boardroom, my fate and Ryan's came to a head. The board of directors assembled my uncle in his faded pinstripe suit, my mother looking both proud and petrified, a few long-time investors, and Ryan perfectly groomed, exuding false confidence. Mrs. Patel entered, carrying a binder as thick as a phone book. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, "we have uncovered serious financial and ethical breaches concerning the management of this venue. I will present the evidence in full. One by one." She laid out the timeline. The emails Ryan sent under my name, the payments to sabotage contractors, the fraudulent loan documents, the security footage showing him orchestrating the whole mess. Ryan tried to laugh it off. "Come on. Everyone knows Morgan hates me. This is all a setup." But the board sat in stunned silence as the footage played, his face illuminated by the monitor, his voice on the audio, Lena's laughter in the background. When the bank documents were revealed, my uncle turned pale. "Ryan, did you really put the venue at risk for a handful of cash? This place was your father's dream. What were you thinking?" Ryan's voice grew shrill. "I built this place with my own hands. What have you ever done but inherit? You're nothing without me." Morgan. For the first time in my life, I did not flinch. "You built nothing. Ryan, you tried to sell off your family's legacy for a quick fix, and you almost got away with it. If not for your own arrogance." The board voted. Ryan was immediately removed from all positions of authority and placed under investigation. The lawyers began drafting papers to pursue civil and, possibly, criminal charges. As for the inheritance, Mrs. Patel read the clause from my uncle's will. In the event that the venue is sabotaged or falls into scandal, and if Morgan is able to prove her innocence and the wrongdoing of another, full ownership and control will remain with her. The decision was clear: I would remain at the helm. Ryan's share was to be placed in escrow, pending the outcome of the investigation. The police were called. Ryan was escorted from the building, red-faced and swearing. My family's reaction was mixed. My mother wept, torn between relief and shame. My uncle would not meet my eyes. Sarah squeezed my hand under the table. The staff, gathered in the hall, cheered quietly as the news filtered through. It was over. Or so it seemed. But even as Ryan was led away, he turned, shouting over his shoulder, "You think you've won? Morgan, this isn't the end. You'll always be alone. No one cares about you, no matter how many parties you throw." The words rang in the marble lobby, ugly and untrue, but they left a mark. I stood among the ruins of the life I'd built, surrounded by whispers, half-hearted apologies, and a victory that felt more like survival than triumph. As dusk fell over the city, I watched the lights of the venue flicker on. One by one, my hands shook not with fear, but with the quiet, hard-earned certainty that I would never again let anyone else write my story. Sometimes justice does not feel like justice at all. Sometimes it is simply the right to start again. The days after Ryan's removal unfolded in a blur: court dates, depositions, and a kind of public reckoning I had never imagined. News of the scandal had already circulated. Local reporters camped outside the venue, eager for statements or a glimpse of family drama. But this time, I did not hide. I faced every question, every camera, with the calm of someone who had lost everything and survived. The board pressed formal charges. Mrs. Patel guided the case through the labyrinth of business law, making sure Ryan's fraudulent actions would not just disappear under a pile of family secrets. The police investigation moved quickly. The video evidence and bank records left little room for doubt. Ryan was indicted for fraud, embezzlement, and destruction of property. For once, the public narrative shifted. Editorials in the city papers stopped painting me as the embattled ice queen and began referring to Ryan as the prodigal cousin whose entitlement nearly destroyed a legacy. Employees who had quietly left during the scandal reached out to return. Old clients sent notes of support. Even vendors I thought I lost called to say, "We knew it couldn't have been you, Morgan." I watched as Ryan's lawyer, an expensive, silver-haired man who seemed bored by the whole affair, argued for leniency. He comes from a good family. He has made mistakes, but surely, given his age and mental state. But the judge was not swayed. Entitlement does not excuse crime, she said. Mr. Ellis, you will be held responsible for your actions. Ryan received a sentence that included restitution, community service, and a period of probation. The board's civil suit stripped him of any claim to the venue or family assets. In the end, the one who had always been given second chances finally ran out of them. What surprised me most was not the legal outcome, but the wave of community support that followed. Clients who had canceled their bookings began to return, apologizing for doubting me. The city's most prominent wedding magazine featured a story about the comeback of the Ellis venue, a place that had weathered family betrayal and come out stronger. The staff organized a potluck celebration in the refurbished ballroom, each person bringing a dish that meant something to them. There was laughter, tears, and, for the first time in months, a feeling that we belonged to something resilient and real. Sarah toasted to the team that saved the dream, her eyes shining. Even the vendors who had hesitated to work with us during the scandal sent handwritten notes and, in one case, an enormous bouquet of white lilies. Our books began to fill again: engagement parties, charity galas, even a high-profile art auction. It felt as if the city itself was rooting for us. One day, an email arrived from the CEO of a national hospitality company, offering a partnership to expand the brand. "You have proven your integrity under fire," he wrote. "That's the kind of leadership we want in our portfolio." For the first time, the future did not look like a tightrope over disaster, but an open road. Yet, for all the celebration, there was a quieter reckoning in my heart. My family, those who had doubted me, sided with Ryan, or watched in silence, began to reach out. My mother sent texts late at night, half apology, half excuse. It was all so confusing. "Morgan, we thought we were protecting you from yourself. Family is complicated." My uncle left a message: "I'm sorry for not seeing the truth sooner. You deserved better." But I was not quick to accept apologies. There's a difference between forgiveness and amnesia. The wounds Ryan left behind would heal, but the lesson lingered. I learned that sometimes loyalty to others must come second to loyalty to yourself. In a board meeting, a senior partner asked me, "Are you planning to welcome Ryan back?" Now that the dust has settled, I answered plainly, "Forgiveness isn't owed, especially when the knife's still in your back. That phrase found its way into a popular advice column. And I started getting letters from people I'd never met, thanking me for saying what they'd always felt but never dared to admit. The deal with the hospitality company moved forward. We negotiated terms that would allow the venue to maintain its character, no soulless chain branding. No corporate takeover. Sarah was promoted to head of floral design. And several young staff members I had mentored over the years stepped up as managers. The sense of shared purpose, battered but intact, grew stronger with each day. We hosted a grand reopening gala. The ballroom gleamed, every candle and chandelier perfectly placed. The air sweet with new hope. Journalists attended. But this time, the stories were of resilience, of rebuilding, not of betrayal. At the event, I was introduced to a woman named Evelyn, the CEO of a foundation that funds women in business. She smiled and said, "I've followed your story, Morgan. I think we need people like you speaking to our young leaders. Would you consider it?" The thought of mentoring others, helping them navigate not just business, but the thorns of family and ambition felt right. The highlight of the night was unplanned. As I thanked the guests, Sarah raised a glass and called out, "To Morgan, who taught us that true family is built, not born." Laughter and cheers followed. But what stuck was the quiet understanding in the room. We had all survived something together. And that bond meant more than blood. Later that week, a video of my brief, honest speech at the gala was shared across social media. In it, I said, "We all want to believe in family. But sometimes, the people who share your name can do the most harm. Forgiveness isn't a given, it's a gift. And some debts are paid not with apologies, but with change." That clip went viral. I received hundreds of messages from people, some strangers, some acquaintances, telling me their own stories of betrayal, humiliation, and, ultimately, healing. As for Ryan, the last I heard, he was working at a small catering firm outside the city, still blaming others, still missing the point. My uncle and mother, perhaps changed a little, perhaps not, remained at arm's length, polite, but forever altered by what had passed between us. The venue thrived. The past no longer weighed me down. It taught me to stand tall. 6 months have passed since that final boardroom confrontation, though in some ways, it feels both longer and much shorter. The Ellis venue, battered but not broken, now stands as a symbol of survival on the edge of Central Park, its tall windows catching the afternoon sun. Its name whispered in the city's social circles with a new note of respect. I have made a home here, not just as the venue's owner, but as its heartbeat. I moved my small apartment into the upstairs suite, a modest space overlooking the avenue, decorated with things that finally feel like mine. The walls are painted a pale blue. The furniture, a patchwork of antiques and memories. There are no more reminders of Ryan's sabotage or of the family that once doubted me. I let those ghosts drift away with the dust of renovation. My mornings begin with coffee in the empty ballroom, sunlight warming the polished floors. Some days, Sarah joins me, her arms full of fresh flowers, laughter echoing between the pillars. We talk about business, about life, about hope. We have started our own traditions, small things, like Sunday dinners with our closest staff, or early morning walks in the park when the city is still quiet. There is peace in routine, and a strange joy in knowing I have built something that cannot be so easily taken. What I have now is not the family I was born into, but the one I have chosen. Sarah is more than a friend. She is a sister in every way that matters. The staff, once wary and weary, are now a close-knit team, invested in the venue's future as much as I am. They bring me stories from their own lives, invite me to weddings and birthdays, confide in me about dreams and disappointments. We have grown together hosting charity galas, welcoming couples from all walks of life, partnering with local artists to fill our halls with music and light. The sense of community is palpable. There are regulars now, a pianist who plays every Friday evening, an elderly couple who dances in the empty hall after everyone else has left, a young caterer who saved the venue from a kitchen fire and now calls this place home. Our chosen family extends further. 2. The partnership with the hospitality company has flourished. New venues are planned in other cities, each one carrying the Ellis name but rooted in our unique story. I travel sometimes, speaking at conferences and mentoring young women navigating their own family storms. I tell them what I have learned, that family is not defined by blood, but by loyalty, kindness, and shared struggle. With the venue secure and the business thriving, I have found space to rediscover other parts of myself. I took up painting again, something I abandoned in my 20s, when work felt all-consuming. On quiet afternoons, I sit in the sunroom and lose myself in color, letting the past dissolve into the gentle rhythm of the brush. My role as a mentor has grown. 2. Evelyn's Foundation invited me to speak at their annual summit. Standing on stage, looking out at a sea of young, hopeful faces, I told my story not as a tale of tragedy, but of perseverance and change. You are not the sum of what others do to you, I said. You are what you build from it. The business itself has continued to expand. We opened a second location in Boston, led by one of my former assistants. Sarah's floral studio now supplies venues across the city. The team that stood by me through the worst now reaps the rewards of our collective resilience. There is a sense of legacy forming, not the legacy of inheritance, but of earned respect. I began to write, as well, small essays about forgiveness, about survival, about choosing to begin again. They found an audience, and, in a quiet way, brought healing to both writer and reader. As for the family I was born into, the years have left them distant, but not hostile. My mother sends cards for the holidays, sometimes an awkward note about the past. But we both know too much has changed for things to return as they were. My uncle retired quietly, living out his days in Florida. His calls polite but perfunctory. I answer when I can, but there is little left to say. And Ryan, well, I heard he started over in a small town upstate, working for a friend's catering business, still nursing old wounds and blaming old enemies. I do not wish him ill, but I no longer wait for apologies that may never come. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if things had gone differently, if I had forgiven too soon, or clung to old loyalties at the cost of my own soul. But I have learned that letting go is not the same as forgetting. It is the first step toward a better life. If you are still listening, perhaps you, too, have faced betrayal from those who should have protected you. Maybe you have been the one in the shadows, working quietly while others took the credit. If so, let me tell you, there is a future beyond humiliation and loss. There is dignity in survival, and power in rebuilding what was torn down. You do not owe forgiveness to those who never asked for it. Family, in the end, is what we create through shared trust and mutual care. I would not trade my chosen family for all the empty apologies in the world. So, have you ever had to redefine your understanding of family? Do you believe blood deserves unconditional loyalty? Or must trust be earned? Even among relatives, I would love to hear your stories, your triumphs, your heartbreaks, your moments of strength. The Ellis venue stands not just because of what we endured, but because of how we rebuilt together, stronger than before. If you find yourself at rock bottom, remember, sometimes, the foundation you build there is the strongest of all. Thank you for listening and for sharing this journey with me. Maybe one day, your story will be the one that gives hope to someone else.